The chamber stretched vast and cold beneath the obsidian dome of the imperial court. Princess Vela stood at its center, her crimson scales catching the pale light that filtered through crystalline pillars. Around her, the Tribunal of Elders sat arranged in a perfect circle, their ancient faces carved from centuries of political calculation. Her father, King Mordax, occupied the highest throne, his massive form radiating barely contained fury. She had known this moment would come. The moment when tradition collided with choice, when the weight of 1,000 generations pressed against the singular decision of one heart. The human stood beside her. His name was James Cole, and by every measure of galactic society, he should not have been there. Humans were newcomers to the stars, barely 3 generations removed from their first crude faster-than-light engine. They possessed no ancient lineages, no crystalline memory matrices passed down through royal bloodlines, no telepathic networks that bound their people across light years. They were, in the estimation of most elder races, children playing with weapons they barely understood. Yet James stood unwavering, his hand resting gently on Vila's shoulder. The gesture spoke volumes in a court where such casual contact between species was unheard of, where a princess of the Draconis Empire did not allow herself to be touched by anyone beneath the rank of nobility. Elder Thane rose first, his voice carrying the weight of 500 years. Princess Vela of the Crimson Wing, third daughter of the Eternal Flame, you stand accused of betraying your sacred duty. You have allowed a human to invoke the right of choosing. This cannot stand. The right of choosing. An ancient law, nearly forgotten, buried in texts so old that most assumed it had been rendered obsolete by modern treaties and political arrangements. It stated simply that any citizen of an allied species could claim a bond with a member of the royal family if that bond was genuine and reciprocated. It had been written in an age when the Empire was young, when alliances were forged through shared struggle rather than calculated diplomacy. Vela had spent 3 cycles researching the right after James had first spoken of it. She had climbed into the deepest archives, translated texts that had not been read in millennia, and confirmed what her heart already knew. It was legal, it was binding, and it was absolutely unbreakable under imperial law. The right stands, Vela said, her voice steady despite the trembling in her chest. It has not been revoked. It remains part of our foundational laws. King Mordax leaned forward, his golden eyes blazing. Foundational laws written when our empire consisted of 3 star systems, before we knew the galaxy teemed with opportunists and power seekers. That human seeks to elevate himself through you. James spoke then, and his voice carried none of the elaborate formality that typically marked court proceedings. Your Majesty, I seek nothing but her happiness. I have no claim to make on your throne, no political ambition, no desire for power. I am a shuttle engineer from Earth. I repair atmospheric converters and recalibrate gravity plating. I met your daughter when my ship docked at the orbital platform above your capital world, and I fell in love with her kindness before I even knew she was royalty. The chamber fell silent. Among the elder races, such blunt emotional declarations were considered crude, unsophisticated. Love was acknowledged, but rarely spoken of so directly, especially not in formal settings. It was something that happened despite political arrangements, not because of them. Elder Mora, her scales white with age, tilted her head. And you, Princess, you accept this claim? You understand what it means? To bond with a human is to limit your lifespan to match his. Our people live for thousands of years. Humans barely see 2 centuries with their best medicine. You would throw away millennia of life for decades with this creature? Vela felt James tense beside her, but she squeezed his hand. I understand completely, Elder Mora, and yes, I accept it. I choose it freely. Madness, Mordax growled. I forbid it. You cannot, Father. Vela's voice remained calm, but steel entered her tone. The right supersedes even royal decree. It was designed specifically to prevent monarchs from denying bonds that served the greater unity of the empire. You cannot forbid what our own laws permit. Chancellor Vex, the king's chief advisor, rose smoothly. Perhaps we should examine whether this human truly qualifies under the right. The law states the bond must be genuine. How do we know this is not mere infatuation? How do we know he has not manipulated the princess through human cunning? James laughed, a sound sharp and unexpected in the formal chamber. Manipulated her? I barely understood your customs when we met. I thought she was a station administrator when I asked her to join me for dinner. She had to explain that she was royalty after I'd already complained about the quality of the station's recycled water to her face. Despite herself, Vela smiled at the memory. He had been so earnest, so completely unaware of protocol, treating her as simply another person rather than a princess to be feared or courted for advantage. It had been refreshing in a way she had not experienced since childhood. The bond is genuine, Vela stated firmly. I have submitted to every test your telepaths could devise. They found no deception, no manipulation, no hidden agenda. They found only what James has stated, love. Simple, uncomplicated, honest love. Elder Thane's expression remained grave. Even if we accept the legality and genuineness of this claim, we must consider the political ramifications. You are third daughter, yes, but you are still in the line of succession. Your bonding with a human will send shockwaves through every allied court. It will be seen as the Draconis Empire elevating humanity above older, more established species. Good, Vela said, and now fire entered her voice. Perhaps it is time we stopped measuring worth by age and started measuring it by character. Humanity has been part of the galactic community for barely a century. Yet they have contributed more innovation, more art, more genuine effort at understanding other species than many races who have held seats on the council for millennia. They approach every challenge with creativity because they have not yet learned to be cynical. They believe problems can be solved because they have not yet accepted that some problems are simply endured. She turned to face her father directly. You taught me that the strength of an empire lies not in the purity of its bloodlines, but in the loyalty of its people. James has shown me more loyalty, more genuine care than any of the suitors you have paraded before me. He asks nothing. He offers everything. Is that not the kind of bond our empire should celebrate? Mordax was silent for a long moment, his massive chest rising and falling with carefully controlled breaths. When he spoke, his voice had lost some of its edge. You truly love him? This is not rebellion for rebellion's sake. Not some attempt to assert independence. I love him, Father. And yes, I choose this independently. But those two truths do not contradict each other. The king looked at James, studying him with eyes that had evaluated threats and allies across centuries. Human, you understand what you ask? She will leave behind much of what she knows. The royal court will resist this union. You will face hostility from those who see your kind as upstarts and opportunists. James met his gaze without flinching. Your Majesty, I grew up on a colony world where we lost power every winter and had to choose between heating and food production. I have rebuilt engines with my bare hands in the vacuum of space when safety protocols failed. I have faced hostility before. I will face it again. But I will face it standing beside Vela, and that makes it worthwhile. Elder Mora made a sound that might have been approval, or might have been resignation. The human speaks with conviction, at least. That is something. Chancellor Vex tried once more. Your Majesty, perhaps we could delay the ratification? Allow time for further investigation, further consideration. No, the voice came not from Vela or James, but from King Mordax himself. The chamber fell into shocked silence as the king rose from his throne, his presence dominating the space. Enough. I did not build this empire by ignoring our own laws when they became inconvenient. The right of choosing is clear. The bond has been proven genuine. My daughter has made her choice freely and with full understanding of the consequences. He descended from his throne, his footsteps echoing in the silent chamber, until he stood directly before James and Vela, up close. His size was even more imposing, his scales gleaming like polished rubies, his eyes holding depths of experience that spanned centuries. "Human," he said quietly, "if you harm her, if you betray her, if you prove unworthy of this choice, I will personally ensure you understand the full extent of a father's wrath. Do you understand me?" James nodded slowly. "I understand, Your Majesty, and I accept those terms completely." Mordax turned to his daughter. "And you, Vela, you are certain? There is no doubt in your heart?" "None, father. He is my choice." The king was silent for another long moment. Then he reached out and placed one massive hand on Vela's head, a gesture of blessing from her childhood. "Then let it be recorded. Princess Vela of the Crimson Wing has invoked the ancient right of choosing. Her bond with James Cole of Earth is recognized and ratified by this tribunal. Let no member of this court question it further." He looked around the chamber, his gaze touching each elder in turn. "And let this be a lesson to all of us. We built our empire on laws meant to unite diverse peoples. We do not abandon those laws simply because they lead to unexpected places. If we cannot honor our own traditions, we have no right to demand others honor their agreements with us." Elder Thane inclined his head. "Wisely spoken, Your Majesty. The tribunal acknowledges the bond." One by one, the other elders followed suit, though some with more reluctance than others. It did not matter. The decision was made. The bond was recognized as the formal proceedings concluded and the chamber began to empty. Vele felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had known the risk she took in invoking the right, known that it could have resulted in exile or worse. But she had also known that a life spent denying her own heart for political convenience was no life at all. James squeezed her hand gently. "Are you all right?" She looked at him, this human who had wandered into her life with no agenda beyond honest connection, who had stood before the most powerful beings in the empire without fear because he believed in what they shared. "I am better than all right," she said softly. "I am free." As they walked together from the chamber, Vela could hear the whispers beginning already, could feel the weight of 1,000 eyes watching this unprecedented union. The challenges ahead would be significant. The resistance from traditional factions would be fierce. But standing beside James, feeling the warmth of his presence and the strength of his conviction, she knew they would face it together. The empire would adapt, as it always had. New precedents would be set. And perhaps, centuries from now, others would look back on this moment and recognize it for what it truly was. Not a betrayal of tradition, but its fulfillment. Not a weakening of the empire, but proof of its strength. For what was an empire worth if it could not honor the choices of its own people? Vela smiled as they stepped out into the fading light of the triple suns, ready to face whatever came next, together.